Hi everyone, today I'll be giving a really brief overview of our review paper on robotic perception in agri-food manipulation. The motivation behind this work was that there's a need to optimize our agri-food processes as the global food supply chain comes under increasing pressure. And while robotic automation is one potential solution to this, it's heavily predicated on the robot's ability to understand its environment, to localize and identify key objects such as crops within its environment, and this is where perception comes in. So current perception architectures primarily are built upon convolutional neural networks. They're the state of the art right now, and they tend to be really quite deep and quite computationally expensive. And there's some alterations made to facilitate detection and segmentation, and there's more detail in the paper. The problem with these deep models is, as with most domains, there's a need for large labeled training datasets to allow these models to generalize well to unseen data. The problem in agricultural robotics is that creation of these large datasets for niche tasks is actually quite problematic. There's a lot of different domains, a lot of different challenges, and you can create a bottleneck having to constantly create new large labeled datasets. And we actually looked at some methods for mitigating this problem. The most interesting of which is data synthesis using GANs. So this is basically trying to create sample labeled data that contain important characteristics, but it's generating it using generative models such as generative adversarial neural networks. Just to quickly cover some of the actual challenges that we address in agri-food, in the agri-food domain. Challenges typically occur in the field in agriculture, so this is things up to and including harvesting. And the three main challenges are phenotyping, which is identifying crops with desirable characteristics. So maybe it's got the right colour, maybe it's the right size or the right shape, and these tend to be achieved in computer vision using things such as leaf counting, stem analysis, and 3D crop models. Quality analysis is another challenge, and basically this is just to look for any visual aberrations such as pests and disease that would mean that this crop wasn't actually viable for to actually be harvested and then sold in a market. And finally, harvestability, which essentially involves A, checking the growth stage of crop, to see whether or not it's ripe and ready to be harvested, and B, it involves the localization and tracking of objects within the scene so that a robotic manipulator can estimate its pose and then grasp it and then pull or pick or whatever other method is used to harvest, and then it can be sent off to wherever it needs to go. After the food's been harvested, we look at food industry challenges. So this could be packing in a factory, it could be preparing food in kitchens, or it could be the serving of the food in a restaurant. Pick and place is kind of a subdomain of a lot of these other challenges. It involves the segmentation and pose estimation of objects in a scene, so that they may be grasped, picked, and then placed somewhere else. So for example, in packing, you might want to identify a food good, pick it up, and then place it over somewhere in the packing area. A big challenge to overcome here is cluttered and occluded scenes. So they're quite hard because you may not have full vision of the object, so predicting its pose is a real challenge. Serving is an interesting one because there are a lot of humans in restaurants, obviously, so there's a real need for human-aware navigation, and current solutions tend to just focus on line following and fairly flimsy solutions that aren't very robust to noise and changes in the environment. So just to quickly conclude on the key takeaways from our paper, agri-food is a really promising domain, both as a testbed to experiment with new solutions and new methodologies, but also it's a really meaningful area that there can be some real impact through development advancements in agri-food processes. Existing solutions are a really good start, but they are limited, and there's scope for further research within the domain. And you can find out more about the existing and further research available in the domain in our paper. And yeah, thanks for listening.